Welcome into our Locked On Sports coverage of NBA Trade Deadline 2024. It has been some type of a day. David Locke, our Locked On Jazz podcast host, is here with us to talk a little bit of Jazz. Obviously, in one of the trades today, and we'll go back and take a step back to yesterday as well. But today's trade, Utah gets Otto Porter and Kyra Lewis. The Raptors get Kelly Olynyk, Ochai Agbaji. David, do you think this was a good move for the Jazz?
Well, I think the Jazz get a first-round draft pick out of this, the 2024 first-round pick that will be the least of a few teams. Right now would be Oklahoma City. And if you look at how few first-round draft picks have actually moved, right? So if you look at last year's trade deadline, there were 4 for Kevin Durant, but then there were only 3 other first-round picks that traded: Josh Hart, Jakob Poeltl, and the Jazz got 1 for the Lakers. This year, there were 3 for Pascal Siakam. There was 1 for Terry Rozier, 1 for P.J. Washington, and 1 for Kelly Olynyk and Ochai Agbaji. That seems like a pretty good pickup from the Jazz. It feels as though the Jazz got above market value in the picks for this. Kelly's 32 years old, free agent at the end of the year, wonderful player. Ochai is he's actually not young. He's a 5-year college player, second-year NBA player. And the Jazz obviously are making a risk here that the acquisition of the first-round pick at the end of this year is going to turn out to be more valuable to them than Ochai Agbaji.
As you mentioned, because there are a couple of different ways that they can go. We talked about the least of which, and then there can be some favorable options out there as well for the Jazz should this work out in their favor for that 2024 first round pick. Now, this was the move for the Jazz today. Obviously, they made one on February 7th yesterday as well. Pistons acquired Jazz forward Simone Fontecchio in a trade that'll cost them an early second-round pick in the 2024 NBA draft. What are your thoughts on that move?
So again, this one gets similar concept, right? So they get this pick. It's not Detroit's pick, but I think it's either Washington or Memphis's. So it's the second or third pick of the second round, which for some teams is actually more valuable than a late first round pick because the salary's not set on it. And so you often can trade into the first round with one of these early seconds. As of this moment, the Jazz have no picks in 2024 draft at all. So what they've done is they've acquired a late first and an early second, maybe something they can couple together to move up and become more active in the 2024 draft. The other one, and this one might be a little bit below the radar, Simone Fontecchio is a restricted free agent. He's a nice player. He's had a very good year this year. And Detroit has $47 million of cap space next year. When Detroit is calling you and asking about a player they'd like to trade for, and they're a restricted free agent, and the team that's calling has $47 million of cap space next year, it's kind of a way of them saying, hey, we'll give you a second-round draft for him now, or we'll just give him an offer sheet next year, and you're not going to match it. So you might as well get the second now. I mean, Detroit seemed to be pretty dead on. Obviously, Detroit's not winning anything in the near future. So they were dead set on getting Simone Fontecchio so that they could have him be a part of their future. And so I think the Jazz had to kind of put into their calculus here that if they did not trade him, Detroit was going to acquire him as a free agent in the offseason at a price the Jazz may not have been able to match.
Indeed. And speaking of that, the Jazz are in an interesting situation. They're kind of, and the Western Conference is so competitive, but right now, of course, the Jazz sit in the 10th spot. With these moves that the Jazz have made over the last couple of days and kind of where they've been trending lately, do you feel like this at all impacts, or how does it impact their ability to maybe get in, or shall I say, stay in kind of that play-in round space?
So the way they've been trending recently is they've won 19 of their last 29. They're 19-10 in their last 29. This hurts. This is 3 rotation players. Ochai has not been shooting it very well over the last month and a half, about 24% and 17% from 3. So that probably, honestly, I love Ochai, but that may not hurt them. But Kelly was a fulcrum of that second unit's offense, Kelly Olynyk. And Simone had been one of their defensive stoppers in the first unit and plays really hard. So that's going to hurt them. They have opened up minutes for the 9th pick of the NBA draft, Taylor Hendricks, who I think we will see now in the rotation, which is part of the Kelly Olynyk trade, is the fact that the Jazz, I think, needed to open up minutes for the 9th pick of the draft and give them an opportunity to see what they did acquire with Taylor Hendricks. So on one sense, the Jazz 5 leading scorers are still here. Their 3 leading rebounders are still here. But they did lose a lot of rotation minutes in Ochai, in Simone, and in Kelly. They're going to open those up for Taylor Hendricks, maybe a few more. Maybe it's a 9-man rotation now, and Keontae George just plays a little bit more than he has been playing. we'll see. My initial reaction is that we'll probably see something similar to a year ago where the Jazz, after the trade deadline, fell off. But last year they traded Mike Conley, Malik Beasley, and Jared Vanderbilt, all of which were starters or major players. This is a little different. Simone is very important to this team, and they traded 2 players to play a similar position. So there's going to be a gap that has to be filled there. But on the other end, the primary key guys, Lauri Markkanen, Colin Sexton, Jordan Clarkson, Keontae George are all still there. So I'm not sure the slip will be as big as it was a year ago.
Thanks so much, David. As always, appreciate your time. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Locked On Jazz, which is part of our Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you, Gene.